So I want to give a real quick thank you to everybody who supported my last video. I really didn't expect that many people to see it. So everybody's comments and likes and all the subscribers, it means a lot. Thank you. And a special thank you to Protect Mercy, who gave me the idea for this video. This is Team CRIS, my own original RWBY team that I'm currently in the process of making a comic for. I've been working on it for about a year now, and I think it's important that I say their designs are quite a bit older than the Team RWBY ones I designed, so I don't consider them as well done. And since I made them a long time ago, I can't really remember my exact process behind them. I know that when I was designing them, I wanted to emulate the design style of early RWBY, which generally the designs were simpler, and many of the side characters had like the RWBY colors in them. Also, because the poses I've drawn them in for this video are more dynamic, it can be hard to see some of the details, so I'll be using an older character sheet with an older color palette for anything I need to point out. Starting off with the team leader, this is Scylla Agrios. Her color is Celadon, and her illusion is Medusa from Greek mythology. Obviously, I had to incorporate Medusa's snake hair in some way, since it's like her most well-known feature. So I made Scylla's hair green. Continuing with the snake theme, her eyes change to resemble snake eyes when she activates her semblance, turning yellow, and her pupils kind of elongate. And I echoed that in the small yellow details on her design. I did consider making her a snake faunus, but I thought it might be a bit on the nose. I also felt I needed to incorporate Medusa's second most well-known feature, her ability to turn people into stone. So I made the jacket that Scylla wears gray. One thing I wanted to do with the designs for Team CRIS was to try and show off the character of each girl. And for Scylla, that means showing off how she's a little bit rebellious, she's very confident, and she's a bit of a flirt. So she has no problem showing off some skin. That being said, I hate panty shots, so I added some shorts under her skirt, so that won't be a problem. And her clothes that she wears are also meant to hint at her background, maybe her dress used to be a little bit longer, and it didn't always have a tear, which that is a tear. It kind of looks like a cut, but it is a tear. And, maybe her jacket used to fit her properly. Just a little food for thought. I gave her black heels and sleeve cuffs to emphasize her hands and feet, since she mainly fights with her revolvers and her kicks. And speaking of her revolvers, her weapon is named Snakebite, another going strong with the snake theme. And they are intentionally simple compared to RWBY weapons. Again, has to do with her background. Now I did change her design a little bit from the character sheet. Mainly, I got rid of the darker green on her thigh highs and her shoelaces, and I replaced them with her lighter green and the yellow, respectively. The main reason for doing this was just to simplify her palette. She had a lot of colors on her in her character sheets, but also because the dark green was only on her legs, it put a lot of emphasis on them, which wasn't really needed. Out of the four, Scylla is probably the one whose design I'm happiest with, but I'd be interested in your guys' thoughts on it. I like the simplified palette on her, but the color of her thigh highs has always tripped me up. It's just, out of all the colors, I can never find one that just really hits for me. Next up is Rosemarie Quartz, whose color you probably already could guess from her name. It's Rose Quartz, and her illusion is the Sugar Plum Fairy from the Nutcracker. To start with, I wanted to give her a skirt reminiscent of a ballerina skirt, so a bit more of a horizontal shape than Ruby and Weiss's skirts. I will say a big problem I had with her design was trying to stay away from Weiss, because they're both dancers that have some relation to the cold, because the Nutcracker is a Christmas ballet, and I wanted to reference that in Rosemary's design somehow. So I gave her this pattern on her clothes that is very loosely based off of like snowflakes and icicles. The last bit connected to her illusion is the little teardrop motif that's on her skirt, her shoes. It's kinda her zippers and her emblem. A big problem I had with the Sugar Plum Fairy is there's really no iconic design for her other than like a ballerina. Like it differentiates between productions. And so I was doing a lot of research to try and find something I could use, where I found this little tidbit of information that the instrument they used, the Celeste, was chosen specifically because they wanted it to sound like raindrops. And it's not a well-known fact, but I thought it would be fun to include in her design, especially since I was already working on so little. Something you might notice about her design is that it's not the most practical thing to wear in a fight, and I did that intentionally. She's got a big skirt that could get in the way, and her sneakers are not protective and also probably not the best thing to do like exercise in. Rosemary is the main character of CRIS, and I wanted to set her up with plenty of room to grow, so I made her design kind of show off her inexperience and how naive she is, I guess you could say. As far as fighting ability, she's not as bad as Jean, but she's still behind her other classmates. So since she is from Mantle, I figured she'd be used to colder weather, and it's warmer in Vale than it is in Mantle. So I put her in lighter and overall less clothes. I gave her shorts to, again, avoid panty shots. And I put them in this dark gray, so that way her pale legs wouldn't blend in with her white skirt. The gloves that she wears are actually padded, so that way she can grab the blades of her whip without hurting herself. As for the whip itself, it's called Fairy Tale, and yes, that is a reference. It's a bladed dust whip, whose blades can disconnect and reconnect with the use of gravity dust. Her fighting style is inspired by ribbon dancing, because Weiss already fights like a ballerina. The only change I made on Rosemary from like her character sheet to her current design is her weapon, where I made it the dark gray that she wears instead of the white, so that way it'd stand out more from the rest of her. Her design changed the least from her original design, obviously. My main problem with it is just that all the colors are really light. There's not a lot of variation in the saturation, and I didn't really use any darker colors to emphasize important parts like her hands or her face. They're just kind of placed in random spots. The I stands for Isabellina, whose color is Isabeline. Very creative, I know. And her illusion is Apollo from Greek mythology. Which, can I say, was a mistake to choose, because there is no iconic design to pull from, because Apollo is just a guy in a toga with a lyre. And, you could try to incorporate ancient Greek fashion, but I couldn't come up with anything that I was happy with. Instead, I just decided to lean in on the music and the sun, because Apollo is the god of the sun, music, and also medicine, but I represented the sun with her hairpieces, emblem and belt, and her just overall warm palette. The music aspect, I mainly kept to her weapon, Chariot, which is a trombone case with a rocket launcher and machine gun inside that she can switch between when she needs to, and she can also just hit people with it if she wants. It was a lot of fun to design. I made it a different color than the rest of her design, so that way it would stand out more. And the red stripes on the side of it are actually straps, so that way she can just wear it on her back whenever she wants to. So yeah, moving on from her weapon, I decided to get rid of her jacket, as well as the stripes on her legs. And I also just removed the tan color from her palette entirely. With her older design, I felt like the white that she was supposed to be representing was kind of getting lost within all the other colors that she had on her. So removing her jacket and the red stripes and changing her boots to the same brown as her hair, I feel like helped make it so it was more clearly that that white was her color. Something unique to is that her shade of white is actually the white in each of her teammates' outfits. I did this to represent her kind of being the glue that helps hold the team together. You know, if she'll comfort them if they're upset, and if they're in an argument, she'll be like, hey, you guys should talk to each other instead of just not doing that. Unfortunately, I do think her design is the one that I'm least happiest with. Her illusion isn't very clear, and the bits of red don't add all that much, especially since there's like none at the top of her design when she's not wearing her weapon on her back. I still am pretty happy with it. Finally, there's Aoi Shimizu, whose design was really easy. Her color is slate, and her illusion is the Nutcracker from The Nutcracker. Starting off, I wanted her design to feel a lot like a soldier, and her coat is pretty much just the costume worn by the dancer in the ballet. I wanted to keep her covered, make her feel protected, and also keeping her covered helps her to show off her closed off personality, especially like the high collar that she has. I kept her pants black so that when she starts fighting, they wouldn't get lost in the rest of her because her style is very acrobatic. Like my Blake redesign, I made the inside of her coat red so that her legs wouldn't blend into her coattails. Her weapon, Takata, is a spear and sniper rifle, and its name is kind of a reference to her semblance. Unfortunately, there's not really a lot else that went to her design, or at least that I can remember, because it is so close to the Nutcracker costume. I really like her look. I think it's probably the closest out of the four of them to the original RWBY style, although I will absolutely clown on her shoes because they are so lame and I suck at designing shoes so much. But yeah, that was Team CRIS. Feel free to share your thoughts on their designs and weapons. I probably won't be changing their designs since I've already started to draw the comic, and these are their beacon designs, the first part 1, I guess. It takes place at Beacon, but I can always use any advice or criticism that you guys give me in any future designs for them. I hope you guys like this video. I had a lot of fun explaining their designs. These girls are very near and dear to my heart. If you guys want to know more about CRIS, I very occasionally post about it on Twitter. If enough people were interested, I would happily make another YouTube video about them. But this outro was a pain to make, so goodbye.